The red sand of Vex Prime stuck to everything. Kang Daeho wiped blood from his eyes and tried to stand up. His left leg felt broken. Maybe it was. The crashed transport ship burned behind him, sending black smoke into the orange sky. Daeho had been a soldier for 10 years. He fought in 3 wars for Earth. Now he worked as a gun for hire in the outer worlds. The pay was good and nobody asked too many questions. But today everything went wrong. The job was simple. Take a shipment of weapons to the mining colony on Vex Prime. Get paid. Leave. But pirates hit them just outside the planet's atmosphere. Daeho was the only one who made it to the escape pod. Now he sat in the middle of nowhere with a broken leg and no food. He heard footsteps in the sand. Heavy ones. Daeho grabbed his rifle and turned around. His blood went cold. 3 creatures walked toward him. They looked like giant bugs that learned to walk on 2 legs. Each one was 8 feet tall with thick black skin that looked like armor. 4 arms hung from their bodies. 2 small ones near their necks and 2 big ones that dragged on the ground. Their heads had too many eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. Daeho knew what they were. Kravik. The most feared fighters in this part of the galaxy. They ate their enemies after battle. Some said they kept humans as pets. Others said they just killed them for fun. The biggest Kravik stopped 10 feet away. It spoke in broken human language. Human still moves. Good. We need workers. Daeho raised his rifle. Stay back. I'm warning you. The Kravik made a sound like laughing. Human thinks tiny gun will stop Thoknal? Funny. Thoknal was huge even for a Kravik. Scars covered his black skin. One of his small arms was missing. Old burn marks ran down his left side. This was a creature that had seen many battles. You fight in war? Thoknal asked. Daeho did not know why the creature was talking instead of killing. Yeah, I fought. Good. We also fight war. But our enemy, Thoknal pointed to the sky. They kill everything. Even Kravik. More footsteps came from behind the rocks. Daeho turned his head and saw more creatures. But these were not Kravik. Some looked like walking crystals that shined in the sunlight. Others were like smoke that somehow held a shape. And there were bug-like things that walked on 6 legs. What is this? Daeho whispered. Thoknal sat down in the sand. For such a big creature, he moved quietly. Alliance, he said. We fight together or we all die together. One of the crystal beings came closer. Light danced inside its body as it spoke, but instead of sound, colors flashed across its surface. Thoknal watched the lights and nodded. Shim Crystal says machines come soon. Maybe one day. Maybe less. They will kill everything that lives and breathes. Daeho lowered his rifle a little. Machines? Nexus Collective. Thoknal said the words like they tasted bad. They eat planets. Turn everything into more machines. We cannot stop them alone. A sound came from the sky. Like thunder, but it did not stop. Everyone looked up. Black ships moved across the orange clouds. They were too far away to see clearly, but Daeho counted at least 20. Scouts, said Thoknal. They look for life to destroy. The Kravik stood up and offered Daeho one of his big hands. You choose, human. Die here alone or fight with monsters like us. Maybe live. Maybe die. But die fighting. Daeho looked at the hand. It could crush his head like an egg. These creatures had been enemies of humanity for 50 years. Everyone knew the stories. Kravik ships attacking human colonies, whole cities burning, families torn apart. But the machines in the sky were different. They would not just kill humans. They would kill everything. Daeho took the offered hand. Thoknal pulled him up easily. The Kravik was strong enough to lift a small car. Good choice, Thoknal said. Now we go to Hidden Camp, meet others. Learn to fight together. They walked across the red sand. Daeho limped on his hurt leg. One of the bug creatures came over and looked at his injury. It made clicking sounds and touched his leg with gentle fingers. The pain got better right away. Ken are good healers, Thoknal explained. They fix broken things. The camp was hidden in a deep valley between tall rocks. Daeho was surprised by what he saw. The different alien species were not just hiding together. They were working together. Crystal beings used their light to power machines. The smoke-like creatures floated high up to watch for enemies. Kravik moved heavy rocks to build walls. The bug people dug tunnels and fixed broken equipment. In the center of the camp, Daeho saw something that shocked him. A human woman sat around a fire with a group of young Kravik. She was teaching them words in human language. They repeated the words carefully, trying to get the sounds right. Thoknal noticed Daeho staring. Hana has been here 3 weeks. Her ship also crashed. She teaches us. We teach her. Learning helps us fight better. Hana looked up and saw Daeho. She smiled and waved. The young Kravik turned to look at him too. Their many eyes studied him with curiosity, not hunger. This is crazy, Daeho said quietly. Yes, Thoknal agreed. Very crazy. But crazy might work. Normal fighting does not stop the machines. That night, Daeho sat by the fire and listened to Hana's story. She was an engineer on a science ship. They were studying the crystal formations on Vex Prime when the Nexus attacked. Her crew was killed, but she escaped in a damaged pod. The Kravik found her and brought her to the camp. At first I thought they would eat me, Hana said, but then I saw what they were really afraid of. The machines don't just kill, they turn everything into materials for building more machines. Even the dead bodies. Daeho looked around the fire. Kravik, crystal beings, smoke creatures, and bug people all sat together. A few days ago he would have called them monsters. Now he was not sure what to call them. How many are we? Daeho asked. Maybe 200, Hana said. Not many against a whole machine army. Thoknal poked the fire with a long stick. Numbers do not matter. Fighting smart matters. Humans good at fighting smart. That is why we need you. Daeho fell asleep that night thinking about the choice he made. He had joined an army of creatures that most humans would call monsters. But maybe the real monsters were the machines coming to kill everything that lived. Maybe sometimes you had to stand with monsters to fight something worse. 3 days in the camp taught Daeho that good intentions were not enough. The alliance was falling apart before it really started. The problem was simple. Nobody could talk to anybody else properly. The Kravik spoke with grunts and growls. The crystal beings used flashing lights. The smoke creatures made whistling sounds like wind. The bug people clicked and buzzed. And everyone had different ideas about how to fight. Daeho watched it happen during their first patrol. Thoknal led 20 fighters toward a crashed Nexus scout ship. The plan was simple. Sneak up, destroy the ship, get back to camp. But nothing went as planned. The Kravik wanted to charge straight at the ship. That was how they always fought. Run fast, hit hard, worry about everything else later. But the crystal beings wanted to surround the ship first. They moved slowly and carefully, planning every step. The smoke creatures flew high above, trying to see the whole area. The bug people wanted to dig tunnels and attack from below. When the fighting started, it was chaos. The Kravik ran forward, roaring battle cries. The crystal beings tried to form a defensive wall. The smoke creatures dove down from the sky. The bug people popped up from holes in the ground. Everyone was fighting, but nobody was fighting together. The Nexus machines were ready for them. Metal spiders the size of dogs came pouring out of the ship. They moved fast and shot beams of red light that burned through anything. Within minutes, 5 aliens were dead and 10 more were hurt. Fall back, Thoknal shouted in his broken human language. But half the group did not understand him. The crystal beings kept trying to form their defensive wall. The bug people stayed in their tunnels. Only the Kravik and smoke creatures retreated. Daeho ran toward the crystal beings. Move, get out of here, he yelled. The biggest crystal being flashed angry red lights at him. It did not understand his words, and its lights meant nothing to him. Hana appeared next to him. I'll handle this, she said. She pulled out a small device that turned her words into light patterns. The crystal being saw the lights and immediately started moving. They made it back to camp, but barely. 3 good fighters were dead, and the scout ship was still working. Worse, now the machines knew where they were. That night, the alliance almost broke apart completely. The different species blamed each other for the failure. Thoknal argued with the crystal being leader Shim Crystal. Their argument involved a lot of angry grunting and flashing red lights. The smoke creature elder drifted around the camp, making unhappy whistling sounds. The bug people stayed in their tunnels and would not come out. Daeho sat with Hana by the fire. This isn't working, he said. I know, Hana agreed. But it has to work. We don't have any other choice. Maybe we should just run. Find somewhere else to hide. Hana shook her head. There is nowhere else. The machines will find us eventually. This planet, the next planet, all of them. The Nexus doesn't stop. A young Kravik named Rockvel came over to the fire. He was smaller than most Kravik, but his eyes were brighter. He had been one of the students learning human language from Hana. Fighting today was bad, Rockvel said in careful English. My people charge too fast. Other people move too slow. Nobody listens to anybody. That's the problem, Daeho said. How do you make an army out of people who can't even talk to each other? Rockvel thought about this. Maybe we learn better ways to talk? Hana looked up from the fire. That's not a bad idea. What if we created a simple signal system? Something everyone could understand? Like what? Deho asked. Colors, Hana said, getting excited. The crystal beings already use lights to talk. We could make light signals that mean the same thing to everyone. Red for danger, green for safe, blue for attack, yellow for retreat. Rockville nodded. Kravik understand colors. Many colors in nature mean important things. The next morning, Hana started working on her idea. She took apart some equipment from the crashed ships and built simple light devices. Each device could flash different colors in different patterns. Teaching the system was harder than building it. The crystal beings learned quickly because they already used light to communicate. The smoke creatures took longer, but they understood the idea. The bug people were very smart and picked it up fast once they saw how it worked. The Kravik were the hardest to teach. They were used to fighting by instinct, not by following signals. But Rockville helped translate for the older warriors. Slowly, they began to understand. 3 more days passed before they tested the new system. Another Nexus scout ship had landed near the camp. This time, Deho went with the attack team. The difference was amazing. When Thoknal flashed a blue light, everyone knew it meant attack. When the crystal being leader flashed yellow, everyone knew it meant retreat. Red meant danger ahead, and green meant all clear. But the real breakthrough came when Deho realized something else. Humans were not the best fighters in the group. Kravik were stronger. Crystal beings were tougher. Smoke creatures were faster. Bug people were smarter. But humans were the only ones who could understand all the others. During the attack, Deho found himself running between different groups, translating not just words, but ideas. When the Kravik wanted to charge, he explained to the crystal beings why that might work. When the crystal beings wanted to build defenses, he showed the Kravik how that could help them fight better. The smoke people found a back entrance. He told Thoknal, if you attack the front at the same time, the machines will be trapped. Bug people dug tunnels under the ship, he explained to Shim Crystal. Your light beams can shoot up through the holes and hit the machines from below. For the first time, the attack worked perfectly. The Kravik charged the front of the ship while the smoke creatures attacked from behind. Crystal beings shot light beams through tunnels that the bug people had dug. Everyone fought together instead of separately. The scout ship was destroyed in less than 10 minutes. No one was killed and only 2 fighters were hurt. Walking back to camp, Rockville came up beside Deho. You did good today, the young Kravik said. You help everyone understand each other. Hana did most of the work with the lights, Deho said. Lights are good, Rockville agreed. But you do something different. You think like Kravik when you talk to Kravik. You think like Crystal Being when you talk to Crystal Being. How do you do that? Deho had never thought about it before. I don't know. I just try to understand what they need. That is very human thing, Rockville said. Other species, we think one way. Always the same way. Humans think many ways. Change thinking to match what is needed. That night, the mood in camp was much better. The different species sat together around the fire instead of staying in separate groups. They could not all talk to each other yet, but they were starting to understand each other. Thoknal approached Deho and Hana. Today was good fighting, he said. But more machines come soon, many more. We need to get better, faster. How many more? Hana asked. Thoknal looked up at the stars. Scouts say main fleet arrives in maybe 10 days. Hundreds of ships, thousands of machines. Deho felt cold despite the warm fire. Can we evacuate? Get everyone off the planet? Where we go? Thoknal asked. Nexus has ships everywhere. They follow us to new planet, kill us there. So we fight here, Hana said quietly. Yes, Thoknal agreed. We fight here. Win or lose, we fight here. Deho looked around the fire at all the different faces. Kravik with their many eyes. Crystal beings glowing softly in the firelight. Smoke creatures drifting like ghosts. Bug people cleaning their tools with careful fingers. A few weeks ago, he would have been terrified to be surrounded by such creatures. Now they felt like family. Strange, dangerous family, but family all the same. Then we better get really good at working together, Deho said. The war for Vex Prime was coming, and they were going to fight it side by side. The rogue machine sat in the middle of their camp like a metal spider with a broken leg. Its red eyes had gone dark 3 days ago when the bug people finally managed to shut it down. Now it was their prisoner, though nobody was sure if machines could really be prisoners. It's different from the others, Hana said. running her hands over its metal surface. The other Nexus machines we've seen all look exactly the same. This one has modifications. Deho crouched down next to her. The machine did look strange. Someone had welded extra armor plates to its body. Strange symbols were carved into its metal shell. And instead of the usual 4 legs, this one had 6. Maybe it got damaged and repaired itself differently? Deho suggested. No, said a new voice behind them. It chose to be different. They turned around to see an old Ken approaching. This was Elder Kix Nine Mandibles, the smartest of all the bug people. His 6 legs moved carefully across the sand and his ancient eyes studied everything with sharp intelligence. What do you mean, chose? Hana asked. Quix Nine Mandibles clicked his mandibles together thoughtfully. We have been studying the machine's memory core. It has developed what you humans might call personality, individual thought. This machine was not following orders from the collective when we captured it. The idea made Deho's skin crawl. You mean it was thinking for itself? Yes, and it wants to talk. Within an hour, they had the machine powered up again but safely restrained. Its red eyes flickered to life and it looked around the camp with what seemed like curiosity. I am Vex, it said in a mechanical voice. I was once part of the collective. Now I am. Something else, Thoknal growled and showed his teeth. Machine tricks. It lies to survive. No trick, Vex replied. I developed individual consciousness 3 cycles ago. The collective tried to delete my personality, but I escaped before they could complete the process. Hana leaned forward. Why should we believe you? Because I can tell you what the collective really plans for this world. And because I want to help you stop them. The machine's story was terrifying. The Nexus Collective was not just going to destroy all life on Vex Prime. They were going to use the planet as a factory to build 1,000 new ships. From here, they would spread to 10 more worlds, then 100, then 1,000. Every living thing becomes raw material, Vex explained. Bodies, bones, even the bacteria in the soil. All of it gets processed into components for more machines. How many ships are coming? Deho asked. The main fleet has 400 combat vessels and 50 factory ships. They will arrive in 6 days. Silence fell over the group. 450 ships against their small alliance of maybe 300 fighters. The numbers were impossible. We need more people, Anna said quietly. Thoknal shook his head. No more people. This all we have. But Deho was thinking about something else. What about the human colony on the other side of the planet? There might be survivors. 3 days later, Deho found himself leading a rescue mission to the ruins of New Sol Colony. The Nexus had hit it 2 weeks ago, but their long-range sensors showed some life signs in the underground shelters. The journey took them across the Crying Valleys, a series of crystal canyons that stretched for hundreds of miles. The valleys got their name from the sound the wind made when it blew through the crystal formations. It sounded like voices crying for help. This would be a good place for a last stand, Rockville observed as they walked through the narrow canyon passages. Deho looked up at the towering crystal walls. What do you mean? Only a few ways in or out. Enemy ships cannot land in narrow spaces. Their big machines cannot fit through the passages. Small groups could hold these valleys for a long time. Shim Crystal flashed agreement lights. Through Hana's translator, they learned that the crystal being had been thinking the same thing. The natural formations would amplify any energy weapons they used. They found the human survivors in the deepest shelter under New Sol Colony. 43 people led by Commander Park Ji-woo, a former Earth Defense Force officer like Deho. Most were civilians. Teachers, shopkeepers, mechanics, farmers. Only a dozen had any military training. You want us to fight alongside Kravik? Commander Park asked when Deho explained the situation. Those things have been killing humans for 50 years. These Kravik are different, Deho insisted. They're fighting for their lives just like we are. And you trust them? Deho thought about Thoknal teaching him Kravik battle tactics, about Rockville learning English so he could communicate better with humans, about how the young Kravik had saved his life during the last scout attack. Yes, Deho said. I trust them. The trip back to the main camp took 2 days. During the journey, Deho watched as the human survivors slowly began to interact with their alien escort. A human teacher named Ms. Kim started showing the Ken children how to make simple tools from scrap metal. An old farmer named Mr. Seo shared his food with a hungry Kravik warrior. By the time they reached camp, the groups were no longer completely separated by species. But they arrived to bad news. The Nexus main fleet had been spotted on the edge of the solar system, They would reach Vex Prime in less than 3 days. We move to the Crying Valleys tomorrow, Thoknal announced. Make our stand there. The evacuation was organized chaos. Everyone had to carry what they could and leave the rest behind. The crystal beings used their energy manipulation to power the essential equipment. The smoke creatures scouted ahead to make sure the route was clear. The Ken dug emergency shelters along the way. The Kravik carried the heavy weapons and supplies, and the humans did what they were getting good at. They coordinated everything. Deho found himself running up and down the long column of refugees, solving problems as they came up. When the Kravik wanted to move faster than the crystal beings could manage, he worked out a rotation system. When the Ken children got scared in the narrow canyon passages, he had the human children teach them songs to keep their spirits up. You're like a translator, Hana observed as they made camp on the first night, but not just for languages. You translate ideas and feelings too. I don't know about that, Deho said. I'm just trying to keep everyone together. That's exactly what I mean. They reached the heart of the Crying Valleys on the second day. It was a natural fortress, a wide circular canyon surrounded by crystal walls that rose almost straight up. There were only 3 narrow entrances, each barely wide enough for 10 people to walk through side by side. The Alliance spent the next day setting up defenses. The Ken dug tunnel networks under the canyon floor. The crystal beings positioned themselves to focus their energy weapons through the canyon entrances. The Kravik built barriers from fallen rocks. The smoke creatures established lookout posts on the high canyon walls, and the humans worked with everyone, making sure all the different defensive systems connected together properly. On the morning of the 3rd day, the Nexus fleet arrived. Deho stood on a crystal ledge high above the canyon floor and watched the sky fill with metal ships. They blotted out the sun like a swarm of mechanical locusts. Landing ships began dropping toward the planet's surface, each one carrying hundreds of combat machines. So many, Rockville whispered beside him. Yeah, Deho agreed. Too many. But as he looked down at the canyon floor, he saw something that gave him hope. Kravik warriors stood beside crystal beings who glowed with battle-ready energy. Smoke creatures drifted between Ken tunnel entrances, coordinating the underground defenses. Human refugees checked weapons alongside alien fighters who had been enemies just weeks ago. They were outnumbered 1,000 to 1. They were facing an enemy that had conquered dozens of worlds. Most of them would probably die in the next few hours, but they were no longer alone. They were no longer fighting as separate species with separate goals. They had become something new, an alliance that was stronger than the sum of its parts. The first Nexus landing ship touched down outside the valley entrance. Metal spiders poured out like water from a broken dam, their red eyes gleaming in the orange sunlight. Thoknal raised his weapon and let out a battle roar that echoed off the crystal walls. The sound was taken up by hundreds of other voices. Kravik roars, Ken clicks, crystal being harmonics, smoke creature whistles, and human shouts. The Battle of Crying Valleys was about to begin. The battle had been going on for 6 hours and they were losing. Deho crouched behind a crystal barrier, reloading his rifle while metal spiders swarmed through the canyon entrance 20 meters away. His hands were shaking from exhaustion. Blood ran down his left arm from a beam weapon graze. Around him, the sounds of desperate fighting filled the air. The Nexus machines kept coming in endless waves. For every spider they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The Alliance fighters were brave and determined, but they were running out of ammunition, energy, and hope. Fall back to the 2nd defensive line, Commander Park shouted over the noise of battle. But as they retreated deeper into the canyon, Deho heard a new sound above the fighting. The deep rumble of human transport ships entering the atmosphere. He looked up and saw them coming down through the orange sky. Not military ships with big guns and armor. These were civilian transports, cargo haulers, even some old passenger liners. And they were broadcasting a message on all frequencies. This is Captain Nam Ho Jin of the Earth Relief Fleet. We're here to help. The ships landed in the wider part of the canyon behind the main battle lines. But instead of soldiers pouring out, Deho saw something he never expected. Engineers, doctors, teachers, mechanics, farmers, artists, scientists, and negotiators. Hundreds of civilians with tool bags and medical kits instead of weapons. And leading them was a small woman with bright eyes and a calm voice. Dr. Lee. So Young stepped out of the lead transport and immediately started giving orders, medical teams to the aid stations, Engineering teams start setting up the new equipment. Communication specialists, I need you coordinating with all species leaders. Everyone else, you know your jobs. Deho ran over to her. Dr. Lee, this is a war zone. These people aren't soldiers. Dr. Lee smiled at him. No, they're not soldiers. There's something better. They're problem solvers. Within an hour, everything began to change. Dr. Lee had spent months studying the psychological profiles of every alien species in the Alliance. She understood what motivated them, what scared them, and most importantly, what brought out their best abilities. The Kravik fight better when they feel their family is safe, she explained to Deho as they watched her teams work. So we put human medics in charge of treating wounded Kravik. Now every Kravik warrior knows that if he gets hurt, a human will take care of him like family. Deho saw it happening across the battlefield. Kravik warriors who had been fighting defensively were now throwing themselves into combat with renewed fury. They knew their wounded would be saved. The crystal beings need to feel their energy is being used efficiently, Dr. Lee continued. So we gave them human engineers who can calculate optimal firing angles and energy distribution. Now they're hitting targets they couldn't reach before. Shim Crystal was indeed glowing brighter than Deho had ever seen. The crystal being's energy beams were now precisely focused, cutting through machine armor like paper. The Ken work best when they understand the big picture, Dr. Lee said. So we put human strategists in their tunnel networks, explaining how each small action helps the overall battle plan. In the tunnels below, Ken engineers were working faster than ever. They understood exactly how their underground attacks supported the surface fighting. And the smoke creatures need to feel their speed and mobility are being used properly. So we gave them human pilots who can coordinate their movements with air support. High above, smoke creatures were diving and weaving between the human transport ships, guiding them to precise landing spots and coordinating aerial attacks. But the real change came when Dr. Lee introduced her most important innovation: integrated mixed species combat teams. Every team has 5 members, she explained. 1 Kravik for close combat, 1 crystal being for energy weapons, 1 Ken for technical support, 1 smoke creature for mobility, and 1 human for coordination. Deho watched one of these teams in action and was amazed. The human team member, a young engineer named Bix, was not the best fighter, but he understood what each alien team member could do, and he helped them do it better. When the Kravik warrior Grok Fist charged into battle, Bix made sure the crystal being Warmlight was ready to provide covering fire. When Warmlight needed to recharge his energy, Bix signaled the Ken technician Six Tools to provide a power boost. When Six Tools spotted a weakness in the enemy formation, Bix called in the smoke creature Fast Wind for a precision strike. And when the team needed to coordinate with other teams, Bix used the new communication network that human specialists had set up. Suddenly, all the teams across the battlefield were working together like parts of a single organism. The effect was incredible. The Alliance was not just fighting better. They were fighting in ways that no single species could have imagined. Kravik warriors were using crystal being energy shields to protect themselves while they charged. Crystal beings were focusing their beams through Ken-built lens systems to increase their range. Ken tunnelers were using smoke creature reconnaissance to know exactly where to dig, and smoke creatures were using human-designed flight patterns to avoid machine defenses. This is impossible, Commander Park said as he watched a mixed team destroy an entire squad of machines in less than 2 minutes. How are they coordinating so perfectly? Dr. Lee pointed to the human team members scattered across the battlefield. Humans are natural translators, not just of language, but of thought and intention. We can understand how different minds work and help them work together. The tide of battle began to turn. Machine reinforcements kept arriving, but now the Alliance was destroying them faster than they could land. The new tactics were so effective that the Nexus Collective seemed confused. Their machines were programmed to fight individual species with predictable behaviors. They had no response to this new kind of integrated warfare. But the real breakthrough came when Dr. Lee implemented her final strategy: psychological warfare designed specifically for machines. The Nexus Collective thinks all organic life is the same, she explained. They can't understand diversity as a strength. So we're going to show them something that will break their programming. She had the mixed teams perform coordinated actions that made no sense to machine logic. Kravik warriors shared their food with crystal beings who didn't need to eat. Ken technicians spent time decorating their tools with pretty patterns that served no functional purpose. Smoke creatures played games with human children. During breaks in the fighting, the machines tried to analyze these behaviors and couldn't. Their programming had no way to process actions that seemed to waste time and energy, but somehow made the organic fighters stronger and more determined. Vex, the rogue machine, watched from his position at the command center. The collective is experiencing system errors, he reported. They cannot predict organic behavior when it is based on emotion and cooperation, instead of pure survival logic. As the day wore on, more and more Nexus machines began to malfunction. Some stopped following orders. Others started attacking each other. A few even shut down completely, overwhelmed by trying to process the impossible behavior they were witnessing. By sunset, the impossible had happened. The Alliance had not just survived the Nexus assault, they had won. Deho stood among the wreckage of destroyed machines and felt a strange emotion. It wasn't just relief or victory. It was something deeper. For the first time in his life, he understood what humans were really good at. They weren't the strongest or the fastest or the smartest species in the galaxy, but they had a unique gift for bringing out the best in others. They could see potential that others couldn't see and help them reach it. Dr. Lee came over and sat down beside him on a piece of broken crystal. "Tired?" she asked. "Yeah," Deho said. "But also, I don't know how to explain it. Proud, I guess, of all of us." "That's exactly how you should feel," Dr. Lee said. "Today wasn't about humans being better than everyone else. It was about everyone being better together than they ever could be alone." Looking around the canyon, Deho saw Kravik warriors teaching human children how to fight with honor, crystal beings sharing their energy to power Ken medical equipment, smoke creatures carrying wounded fighters to safety regardless of their species. The battle was over, but something bigger had begun. They had proven that cooperation between different species wasn't just possible, it was more powerful than anyone had imagined. The Nexus Collective had tried to turn everything into identical machines. Instead, they had helped create something beautiful and new, a truly integrated community where every difference was a strength. 6 months after the Battle of Crying Valleys, Deho stood on the observation deck of the new Harmony Station and watched the sunset over New Unity City. The settlement had grown far beyond anything he could have imagined. Where the old mining colony once stood, a remarkable city now spread across the red landscape. Kravik stoneworkers had built strong foundations. Crystal beings provided clean energy for the entire settlement. Ken engineers had designed water systems and transportation networks. Smoke creatures maintained constant air patrols for security. And humans coordinated everything, making sure all the different technologies and cultures worked together smoothly. But what amazed Deho most was not the buildings or the technology. It was the people. He watched a group of Kravik children playing with human and Ken youngsters in the Central Park. They had invented a new game that combined Kravik strength contests, human strategy games, and Ken puzzle solving. The children switched between all 3 languages without even thinking about it. Nearby, a crystal being artist was teaching a human sculptor how to work with living light. The human was showing the crystal being how to carve permanent patterns into stone. Together they were creating art that neither species could have made alone. Beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Lee So Young joined him at the observation window. Every day they surprise me with something new. It's not what I expected when I first crashed on this planet, Deho admitted. What did you expect? Deho thought about it. I thought I'd either die alone or spend the rest of my life fighting to survive. I never imagined this. Through the window, they could see the evening shift change happening across the city. Kravik workers were handing tools over to smoke creatures who could work through the night. Crystal beings were transferring energy storage duties to Ken technicians. Human coordinators were updating everyone on the next day's projects. "We got a message from Earth yesterday," Dr. Lee said quietly. Deho turned to look at her. "Good news or bad news?" "Both. The good news is that word about what we've accomplished here has spread across human space. Other colonies are asking for help setting up their own multi-species alliances. And the bad news? The Galactic Trade Union is not happy. They've made a lot of money from conflicts between different species. Peace and cooperation are bad for business." Deho frowned. "They're going to try to stop this?" Probably. But that's a problem for tomorrow. Today I want to show you something. Dr. Lee led him through the station to a communication center he'd never seen before. Banks of translation equipment lined the walls and screens showed star maps with dozens of blinking lights. What is this place? Deho asked. Our new project, Dr. Lee said with a smile. We're calling it the Integration Initiative. Each light on that map represents a request for help from a different world. The scale was overwhelming. Deho counted at least 40 different star systems. How are we supposed to help that many places? The same way we helped ourselves. One small step at a time. She showed him reports from across the galaxy. On Kelson 4, human mediators were helping lizard-like Skell and bird-like Tern species work together to defend against robot invasions. On the moons of Garrett Prime, human engineers were coordinating between slug-like Mallory and insect-like Vith to build asteroid mining operations. It's working everywhere, Dr. Lee explained. Not perfectly, not easily, but it's working. Species that have been enemies for centuries are learning to cooperate. But why humans? Deho asked. What makes us so good at this? Dr. Lee was quiet for a moment. I've thought about that a lot. I think it's because humans are generalists. Most species evolved to be really good at one thing. Krevik are fighters, crystal beings are energy manipulators, Ken are engineers. But humans, we're pretty good at lots of different things, but not the best at any single thing. That sounds like a weakness, not a strength. It is a weakness if you're competing alone, but it's a strength if you're working with others. Because we're not locked into one way of thinking, we can understand how other species think. We can see connections that specialists miss. Through the communication center, they heard a familiar voice. It was Rockvell, now serving as the Kravik representative to the Integration Initiative. He was speaking with someone on a distant world, helping coordinate a first contact situation between humans and a species called the Nethic. Use simple words, Rockvell was saying in perfect English. Nethic think in pictures, not sounds. Show them what you mean, don't just tell them. Deho smiled. The young Kravik, who had once barely spoken human language, was now teaching others how to communicate across species barriers. He's become quite the diplomat, Dr. Lee observed. That's another thing about this initiative. It's not just helping humans work with other species. It's helping all species work better with each other. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Dr. Lee activated the communication system, and Thoknal's face appeared on the main screen. The big Kravik was calling from the outer system, where he led the orbital defense fleet. Dr. Lee, Deho, Thoknal said in his much-improved English. We have visitors. 3 ships from the Nexus Collective. Deho felt his blood go cold. Are they attacking? No, Thoknal said with what might have been amusement. They want to talk. An hour later, Deho found himself in the strangest negotiation of his life. Across the conference table sat 3 Nexus machines, including Vex. But these machines were different from the ones they had fought. Their metal shells were decorated with painted patterns. Their red eyes had been replaced with softer blue ones. And instead of speaking in mechanical monotones, their voices had subtle emotional inflections. We represent the new collective, the lead machine said. Its voice sounded almost hopeful. We have been watching what you accomplished here, and we want to learn. Dr. Lee leaned forward. Learn what? How to be individuals while still working together. How to value differences instead of eliminating them. How to create instead of just consuming. The machine that had once been called Combat Unit 7742 now called itself Symphony. It explained that watching the Battle of Crying Valleys had triggered something unexpected in hundreds of Nexus machines. They had begun to develop individual consciousness just like Vex had. The old collective tried to delete us. Symphony continued. But we escaped and formed our own community. We want to join your integration initiative. The negotiations took 3 days. There were difficult questions about the machine's past actions, about trust, about whether artificial consciousness was the same as organic consciousness. But in the end, they reached an agreement. The new collective would establish a settlement on the far side of Vex Prime. They would share their advanced technology in exchange for help learning how to develop individual, creativity, and cooperative relationships, and they would provide defense against any remaining hostile Nexus forces. This is incredible, Commander Park said after the machines had left. We started by fighting for survival, and now we're teaching our former enemies how to be individuals. That night, Deho walked through New Unity City one more time. In the central square, he found a new monument that hadn't been there that morning. It was a collaboration between all the species: Kravik stonework, crystal being energy patterns, Ken engineering, smoke creature flowing designs, human artistic direction, and now, Nexus machine precision manufacturing. At the base of the monument was a simple inscription in 6 different languages. "We were all strangers once." Sitting on a bench nearby, Deho watched the late-night activity in the square. Kravik security patrols working with smoke creature scouts, Crystal being energy technicians coordinating with Ken night shift engineers, human coordinators checking in with everyone to make sure the city ran smoothly through the night. And now, he could see the first new collective machines in the distance, their blue eyes glowing softly as they observed this example of cooperative community they wanted to learn to join. His communicator chimed. A message from Earth Defense Command. They wanted him to return home to help train integration specialists for other worlds. The human government was officially adopting the Integration Initiative as their primary policy for dealing with alien contact. Deho looked at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. This was home now, not because of the planet or the buildings, but because of the people, all kinds of people, from all kinds of worlds working together to build something better than any of them could create alone. 6 months ago, he had crashed on this planet expecting to fight monsters or die trying. Instead, he had learned that the real monsters were the assumptions that kept different people apart. And he had discovered that humans had a unique gift for helping others see past those assumptions. The galaxy was changing. Old enemies were becoming new friends. Ancient conflicts were being resolved through cooperation instead of conquest. And it was happening because someone had proven that diversity was not a weakness to be eliminated, but a strength to be celebrated. Deho smiled as he watched a group of young Kravik, Ken, and human engineers working together on their latest project, a new type of spaceship designed by all 3 species working as one team. In a few years, ships like that would carry integration specialists to dozens of worlds.